when I ended up back in the hospital with differentiation syndrome, I remember it was 3:20 in the morning. Couldn't sleep. I was laying there in the room that I was in. Had a window and I had the blinds open, and it was facing another building, and that other building had lights on, right? So it was kind of lit up. I don't know why this sticks out in my mind, but I remember laying there trying to figure out why all these different hallways had like a stretcher in the hall, and there was a sign above it, and I'm like, what is this? It's almost like I stayed fixated on it. And then the nurse manager came in and she spent an hour with me, I guess. We were just talking. I mean, I was kind of in a weird place that night. I can't explain it. Sad, not sad. A grief. I felt grief. But she came in and, oh my gosh, I just love these nurses. And she sat on the bed and we talked for a long time. And then it hit me that why was I fixated on the stretchers, right? But the stretchers, it hit, hang on, let me go back. So I'm trying to figure out what the stretchers are, and I wasn't allowed out of my room because I was on this neutropenic diet, which means I can't eat any fresh vegetables, no salad, nothing. I could eat donuts if I wanted them, but I couldn't eat anything that could possibly have a bacteria or something on it that would basically probably kill me. So I'm kind of on house arrest up in my room. And I remember one day opening the door, and this man was walking by with a stretcher, and it had one of those laminated signs on it. And I said, Kate, what is that? And it said stroke bed or something. I'm like, huh? So all of those beds in that other building are stroke beds? Since when? Since when do you need that many? I mean, I was a paramedic for years. I've been all up in the halls and of all the hospitals. That's never been a thing. But then it became very clear to me why, this was post-COVID. So I won't go into all that, but I think you can put it together of what was causing all the strokes. That was for some reason it really sticks out in my mind how disturbing that was. That shouldn't be the norm, right? You have them like every 20 feet. I may be exaggerating a little bit, maybe 50 feet. But there's these beds everywhere. I'm like, is this so if somebody just drops dead in the hallway, you have somewhere to put them? I guess, because why else would that happen? But for some reason, I spent probably 2 hours staring at that. I could have easily asked the nurse, what are those beds? But I think, here's my point. Was I fixated on that? Well, it was kind of like a meditation I was in, because as I was staring at it, in one part of my brain's trying to figure out what it is, the other part of my brain's trying to figure out, what if I live? And I'm not exaggerating. What if I live? Now that sounds crazy to some people, but for anyone who has cancer, not anyone, for some people who have had cancer, who are very confident in what heaven feels like, what I call heaven the other side, but what that feels like those that know where they're going, so to say, it's a hard pill to swallow when you find out you're going to live. Because look, I'm a medium. I know what heaven feels like. And I went through a really crazy roller coaster ride when it came to emotions. When everything first started, everything was moving so fast because I was critical. I mean, I knew I was. And then I was so sick, I wasn't even that present to know what the hell's going on. After a few weeks when, I had chemo brain then, but I still felt, right? But when things started slowing down, they never slowed down, but I guess when things sunk in, I had a hard time processing all of this. there's some things that happen with cancer that people don't talk about. And I'll tell you what it is. And some of you will know exactly what I mean when I say this. When you finish treatment or when you go home and, things kind of are getting back to normal and everybody goes back to their normal routine, but not me. I didn't, because I was still trying to pick up the pieces. My body wasn't healed. I was having a rough time emotionally. And it's like the world moved on and I was in a really deep depression. People do not talk about that. Look, I finished treatment. I did 150, maybe more, treatments of arsenic, and then that was it. That's the max. Well, I mean, hell, I guess it is, because I ended up in the ER at one point. They did my arsenic levels. They called poison control because they thought I was being poisoned. I'm like, yeah, I'm being poisoned by Dr. Bazette upstairs on the 6th floor. I mean, come on, people. Keep reading my chart. You'll see I'm not poisoned from, somebody that's trying to kill me. Like, that's olden days. Like, I literally am getting injections of this, but they called poison control, which I thought was funny. But my point is, I maxed out on all of that and then went home. I rang the bell. And let me tell you, when I rang the bell, I rang it and rang it and rang it. I had frequent flyer miles. I deserved that, right? It was at the end of the day. I wasn't interrupting anything, but I rang the hell out of that bell. And I got home and I just felt numb. I went into a depression. My labs started looking better. And y'all, I know that sounds crazy, but it's not crazy. It's what happened. Here's this hope, right? Things are looking up. You might heal. You might be okay. And I remember asking one of the nurses, am I the only one that feels this freaking depressed because I might live? Like, is this because I'm a medium? Like, am I crazy? No, I'm not crazy. I think more people feel that than would like to admit. Because, when you get good news, you're happy. Oh, I'm going to live. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's just because I'm a medium, but I know what heaven feels like, and I know what earth feels like, and this is trauma school, and I could use a break. I've already had 9 lives, shit. But anyway, I had to process, and I ended up really depressed, and the reason I was really depressed is because my body was not cooperating. I was, sitting in the bathtub, taking a bath, and when I finish taking my bath, I'm about to get out. I can't get up. I can't lift myself up. 10 minutes goes by, 20 minutes goes by. I'm like, I can't get up. 30 minutes goes by. I'm like, I really freaking can't get up. 40 minutes goes by, 50 minutes goes by, and I had to maneuver myself around where I threw the towel around the bottom of the toilet to get leverage. And at one point, I'm laughing at myself and I'm crying at the same time. Little things. I just want to step up on this chair so I can put bird seed in my bird feeder. I couldn't lift myself up on the chair. My mind's 25. My body's like, hey, if we're not going to the beach or the mountains, like, I'm not in. I'm like, but you got to get me upstairs. Like, my legs, right? Especially my right leg. Get your ass up the stairs. The left leg's going, you got to go too. And they wanted to fight. Like, nope, I'm staying down here. And I'm like, look, I'm in the middle. I'm just going to drag you up there. And that's kind of what I had to do a few times. And y'all, I'm joking, but I'm saying it lightly, but it wasn't light. It was rough. I did a reading for somebody not all that long ago. I obviously won't say her name, but she's young. I want to say in her 30s, late 30s. She went into cardiac arrest last year, like sudden cardiac arrest. I did the reading for she and her husband. And when I don't even remember readings most of the time, but this sticks out with me because one thing she said was, I don't understand why I feel so depressed. And I said, you don't have to explain. I totally get it. Words aren't needed. You don't have to explain because there aren't any words to explain. It's almost like PTSD. I go in, I'm critical, got to be admitted, got to do this, got to do that. We got to move fast. I don't even have time to breathe. I'm just in survival mode. And then it's like a roller coaster, up and down, up and down, up and down. I'm back in the hospital, and then I'm out. And look, please don't take this as me trying to sound like a victim, because I'm not a victim. I have never felt like a victim, and I don't feel like that now. I'm only sharing my story. And I'm really hoping this reaches whoever it needs to reach, because there are plenty of people who have walked that path. But so this client of mine's telling me she couldn't understand why she felt this depression. And I said, you know what? I think it's there aren't any words. You went through something really, really traumatic. We don't always have to define what we're feeling. We don't have to define why we're crying. We don't have to come up with a reason. Sometimes, and I'm pretty good at this, it's just a release of emotion. And that's what I would do. I would just cry, and I wouldn't go into a story in my head saying, poor me. I would just cry, and I'm just releasing emotion. I've been through a lot, and, my mom always said, you need to learn self-love, and I learned it in Our Lady of the Lake Hospital. I learned it. And when I started talking to myself in the mirror, who had gained 40 pounds in 3 weeks, from the leukemia. I walked, I don't know if I said that earlier, but I'll say it again. I walked past the mirror, and I had a clump of hair in one hand, a bloody Kleenex in the other, my 50-pound IV pole. I had the heaviest IV pole in the hospital. I'm trying to kick the shit out of it to get it out of the bathroom to go back in my room. And I just looked in the mirror, and I'm like, you look wretched. And I'm like, no, you don't. And I just started crying, but not sad tears, compassionate tears for this person I'm looking at in front of me that's trying to do everything right, but is just down. And I started talking to my 5-year-old self. When I started talking to myself like I'm two different people, it really had an impact. And what I said was, I will never talk to you like that again. You need me, and I've never had your back, and I don't know why. Maybe I just didn't know how, but I have you now. I love you. We're going to get through this. Just let's hang in there together. And when I did that, which I'd never done to that extent before, I felt this light feeling come over me it was wild. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what self-love is. Every book tells us that it's the answer. That's what we need to do. And then the freaking book ends. Damn book doesn't tell us how to self-love. I just wasted 2 hours reading the shit that was in the last book. Just kidding. I'm not kidding. That's true. But I figured it out. And it took cancer to get me to reach that point. Self-love is one of, if not the hardest thing to learn on earth. Isn't that strange? Why is it so easy to love others but not ourselves? It's a bizarre phenomenon, because love is so easy, right? But we judge ourselves so much. There's nobody that can judge me more harshly than I can judge myself. And, my mom said that for years. Baby, just learn to love yourself. Well, give me the Cliff Notes, and I'll do it. But there's no answer. It's not supposed to be. It's all about the journey. Well, cancer, when people ask me today, they still do, why did you get cancer? I'm like, look, what do you mean, why did I get cancer? I'm not immune from anything. I'm human too. But since you asked, I'll tell you. Because I needed to learn self-love, and there was nothing else that I had been through in life that brought me to that place of actually having genuine love and compassion for myself. Cancer was it. Cancer was built in on my blueprint as a necessary part of my journey to get me to learn that. And so I would not change a single thing about this journey. I would not change a single thing about cancer. I am grateful for what cancer gave me. And I'm not just saying that. I freaking mean it. I couldn't have done it any other way. And so I started making this a practice. And, I've talked so many times about what I did with my arm, where my left